Hi folks, and welcome to Aunty K's Tarot. I'm Aunty K. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, then you know I do tarot readings and am in the process of creating a tarot deck. So I long promised that my page would include like education into tarot to help those who are learning tarot for themselves. And so I finally decided that's what's going to go on YouTube, and I'm going to use YouTube for it. I'll be able to upload it to the Facebook channel, although I haven't figured out if you can do that to IG. I don't think you can. So, the segment that we have here today is along the lines of helping folks learn tarot, and this segment is, very specifically helping to learn to read tarot. So folks send in a question to me through, my email or my Instagram or my Facebook, and you send to me a tarot reading that you've done that you're just struggling to answer. And to do that, you need to send me, send me what deck you used, and I'll do my best to look it up, although I'll pull my own if I don't have it. And a description of what, the cards' meanings were. If it's Oracle, give me some keywords from the Oracle. Send me pictures of the cards and your interpretation, where you feel good about it, where you struggled, and then I will put it up here. I'll only use your first name, so, you could be like any of a number of folks, unless you give me another name. I will go over and expand and unpack that reading further. And so you get to see your reading unpacked further, and other folks get to see how I do that and how I go about it, and to help all of you unpack your future readings further also. Alright, so we didn't discuss names with this first one here. So I'm just going to say my friend. So my friend sent me a tarot reading, and this was a tarot reading to connect with their personal guide. Alright? And so the first question up, I'm going to flip back and see it because I just wrote their information there, is who their guide is. And for this, they got the Ladybug from the Analkin Oracle and the Chariot from Star Spinner, which happens to be two decks that I love. I love both these decks, and I use them frequently. Okay, the next question up is a message in the moment. So this is a message that their guide wants them, this is relevant now, as opposed to general overall information. This is relevant now. This is something, this is the time is right to do it. A message in the moment. And my friend got the Crow, Magic, and the Seven of Wands in reversed. Okay? The next one up is a message that they have not been receptive to. Alright? So this is an ongoing thing, whereas, in the moment from the Crow, that was immediate. This one is a message that the guide has been trying to get through, that they're just not receptive to, they're not listening to. And we have the Four of Coins and Flamingo Community. Alright? Okay, so the fourth one up, and the third, fourth, and fifth is where this friend really struggled with the reading. So we're going to go with what they have and build on it, and then with these ones here, we're going to go from scratch pretty much. Okay. It's not surprising that you're having trouble reading. a question that is a message you're not receptive to. It's an excellent thing to ask tarot. It's very hard to read that for yourself. And reaching out to somebody for like backup on a question like that, what do you see, is just generally a good idea, because you are probably going to misread it before you just are like, I don't get it. So, 4, to be open to your guide. So this is what will help, my friend, be open to their guide further, and create like a deeper connection there, okay? And they got the frog healing and the world. And this is going to be really relevant to their own insights on the first card in question, who is my guide. So the 5th one they got is help from my guide on my path. This is like the gift part. This is what your guide wants to give just for you, okay? And that's important to think about those things when you're interpreting the reading, because they got sensuality, gecko, and the devil. So this is generally easy to read just for yourself, but some cards are harder to read just for yourself, and you want to say, oh, this is for my community, this is for my family, this is for my job. So you need to pay attention to the questions. Help from my guide on my path. This is like a gift often, you know, because the other stuff is also all help, right? It's really specific things to move you along. This is for you. So, my guide. They got the Lady Beetle or Ladybug in luck in the Chariot. So, in Animalkin Oracle, right away, this friend notices that the ladybug really keeps wanting to talk again and again about childhood innocence, childhood wonder, and bringing that out of yourself. Like, bringing yourself back to that sense of childhood wonder and childhood innocence. And so this, in that, their guides 7, the Chariot. The Chariot is your will. So their interpretation from this is my inner child. And they're correct. Their guide is their inner child. They're speaking through their inner child. Their inner child voice is the guide they really, really need to listen to at this time. We often actually have multiple guides, but this is the guide they really need to listen to at this time, and it's their inner child. Bring out and listen and connect to your guide through, that childhood innocence and childhood wonder. And the Chariot is driven by will. Like, you drive the chariot with your own voice. And so this was the other key to this, that, it's a two-part message, you have to, like, pull that out. So if I have to listen to, that voice inside me that is still childlike, and bring forward these qualities to hear my guide, and that this is my guide, then you're looking within. And the Chariot, your inner will, like you're looking within again. And so they pulled that out really, really well in understanding that, their inner child is their guide. So this affects, the reading, all right? And it gives us insight into the reading, because we know that it's the inner child who is guiding and giving the message from this reading, all right? So First up is the message in the moment. And they also unpacked this one. So they have the crow, magic, and the seven of wands in reverse. Okay? So, one of the things the crow has to say that stood out to them as they were unpacking their reading is the crow's magic is your gifts for your future self. So this was the key part of the message that jumps out. And so if you're doing your own reading, and especially with oracle cards, a lot of oracle cards, you go into the book to see like what it's all about. And so when something jumps out at you as you're looking at that definition, especially in your oracle cards, but if you're looking up a definition or if you're looking into a reference book, you're checking keywords, the one that jumps out to you is often really relevant in that moment, all right? And so what jumps out for this friend is gifts for, Crow, gifts for your future self. Okay, so the message in the moment is really going to benefit the future self. Seven of Wands reverse. So with the Seven of Wands, you have like a conflict going on. Now, this is from the voice of the inner child. So you have a conflict going on between your adult self, your adult behaviors, and your inner child. You have a conflict that's going on there. And one of the things that comes forward with the Seven of Wands that they also picked up on was feelings of failure, ethical or moral. Or were those my notes? I'm not sure. We might discuss them together. So, okay. I'm reading between mine and hers. Because I'm going to unpack your readings in this. So I'm going to include your own thoughts because they're valid. So the Seven of Wands reverse, they know that this is feelings of failure that are ethical or moral. And it's a conflict between the adult self and the inner child, because we know this reading is the inner child speaking from the first question. And often, so if the Seven of Wands is upright, like you've made it through that conflict and you're triumphant, you're worn out, you're possibly battered and hurt or all the rest of it, but you've come out of that conflict. It's in reverse. You haven't like reached the top of that hill. This conflict is not ending. It's just going on and on and on. And as the crow speaks to this, my friend realizes these two connections, the inner child battle with the adult self behaviors, and something that will benefit for the future that is like an ethical and moral conflict that is a constant ongoing battle. Right? And I'm not going to name the addiction, but there are so many types of addictions, from smoking to both food and dieting are both tied addictions and sometimes go back and forth. Shopping, gambling, drinking, drugs. We have all kinds of addictions in our lives. And they see that this is a constant battle. And this fits the ticket. And so the message for the moment from their guides is like, get a hold of like this addiction, and it's going to benefit your future self. Okay? There are a few cards that also can speak to addiction really clearly in tarot. The Devil's one of them, and shows up in this reading, but it isn't what it. That's not what they're talking about this time. But they can be so many things. We really need to look at our lives. It's easy to say, I don't have addictions because, you know, I'm not doing this. But there's so many other ways. So really look at your lives when you hear those messages too. All right. So And you know, if the cards aren't telling you, like, if your voice is telling you, tell you. We all have some. But when they become a constant battle, like, it's in charge of us. And it becomes time to take care of it. So they've unpacked that really well. Now, this is where the stuck happens, right? The message that my friend isn't receptive to. And they get stuck here and they don't move on. You know, sometimes I find when I unpack the rest of my tarot reading, I can come back to this part that I'm stuck on. And I will sort of get it. Or I'll just start doing some tarot prompts. But like I said, a message you're not receptive to is really, really difficult. And I have notes on it, but you know what? I'm going to do this the way I suggested. So, say I'm really stuck on what this message from Flamingo and Community is. I'm going to pull out a few key words, right? And so, Flamingo, I serve with my love, affection, and attention. Flamingos really take care of everybody in this group, and it allows them to travel and do things further and get more things done. And they're about love, compassion, and nurturing. Connect with our community, ask for help if we need it, and offer the gift of our time and service for the people we love. Okay, so, you know, that makes the flamingo, is a message about community really clearly, but if you're involved in your community, you can get pretty stuck here and you're saying, what am I not receptive to? Well, it's not that you're not receptive to your community. There's something you're not receptive to, and your community is part of this, or key to this, or key to unpacking it. And then the Four of Coins. And the Four of Coins is about, you know, the traditional card is like an old miser who won't let go of his bag of coins. But like when we talk about unpack it, we talk about it being things that you're afraid to let go of. You're not willing to let go of. You're hesitant. There's a scarcity issues there, and worry about, you know, the position you're in and where you're going to go and taking these risks. All these sorts of things are in here. So the friend was stuck here. So what we're going to do is like, while I'm stuck, I'm going to get a little bit more information and bring it back here. Because the next one is to be open to your guide. So if we figure out how to be open to the guide, maybe we will also find information here. Maybe we won't. It might not be related, and we'll just come back to it after building some confidence with the other. Okay, so we have the frog, right? And the frog is healing. So, call on your community to hold space for your emotional transformation. Call on your people, like the ones really close on you, to hold space for your transformation. All right? And we have the world. Okay? So, to be open to your guide, your frog wants you to reach out to your community for healing. So this takes us back to that flamingo and community again, right? We need to reach out to our community for healing and participate in our community for healing. And the world, like, you know, the world is so many things. And the world nurtures, the world provides, and the world is our ecosystem, and our community in a much like larger way than what we tend to think of as community. But, you know, perhaps internet's helping us figure that out some. So here with this, we see, you know, that you need to reach out to your community for healing, and your understanding both of community and what your community can offer is like much grander and much greater and much larger than what you had imagined. Okay? And the other thing here that we see with the world is the end of the fool's journey. Okay? So with the world being the end of the fool's journey, and this is a spiritual journey, the major arcana, and 3 of the 5 tarots were major arcana, and 2 of the oracles were spirit, which is the element represented by the major arcana. So, we have a theme going on here, right? You need to realize that this is a new chapter, all right? So, you are about to enter, when you get the world, like, you're ending like an older chapter and going into a new chapter. So the healing you need to get within your community, it's the next chapter in healing than what you've currently been doing at this time. All right? The healing that you've been doing at this time was this part of the fool's journey. And there has been healing along the way. Well, you're wrapping that healing up now, and you need to start a new cycle. So that's part of, to be open to your guide, you need to reach out to your community to begin like the next level of healing. That's where you're at with healing. Even though there's an addiction you're giving up, like that doesn't mean that you're at like bottom stage 1 of a healing journey. Like, because I'm telling you, there's people out there who you will learn from and, you know, get healing information from that also, you know, have various types of addictions or conflicts or emotional issues that they're also working on. We go through cycles of healing journeys throughout our lives. So, like, get ready to level up. When you see this world card, what's part of what the message that's coming through here is, it is time to level up. Alright? It's time to level up. So, that gave us some information about flamingo and community and the 4 of coins. So, and they're right beside each other. They're working together. So, you know, and you have healing on either side of these, because on the other side of it, your message for right now is about, as the friend has unpacked themselves, is about addiction. So also healing. We have a lot of healing coming out in these cards, and that's not a surprise, because we're talking about the inner child as the guide in this reading. Okay. So we really need to think about this whole community card thing a little bit more, right? Sitting in between these 2 healing cards of magic and frog healing, and the 4 of coins. Okay. So, you know, there's information. Obviously, I'm going to have a conversation and get information with the person that, you know, if you send me a reading, we're going to need to have a conversation, because you're going to tell me about where you are at with this reading and what's going on. And so one of the things that I happen to know is, you know, that this friend did grow up, you know, with poverty, and this person doesn't have a lot now. They're still living with that. And even though they recently had a bit of a level up, like they're still experiencing broke. And this is really common in indigenous communities, to like be stuck between like poverty class and working class, at the bottom of the working class. And like there's a lot of issues there, and there's a lot of like scarcity fears that we need to deal with. Now, this person grew up with them, and taught some really good skills in how to deal with it, but has learned that a lot of the skills that they learned from the non-native parent aren't necessarily applicable because they're in a different community than their non-native parent now that they are an adult. And this is super common, folks. Like, you know, a lot of us who have been displaced from our native communities in various ways, we don't end up in the same community as the non-native folks who raised us. We end up coming back into native communities, and they function differently. There's a different culture of community, and there's a different culture of dealing with scarcity needs. Okay? There's different help culturally for addictions, and there's different ways of like leveling up your healing journey. But, you know, it's a tricky thing when 70% of those of us who are indigenous have been raised outside of our communities and are come back to communities and are recreating and build, like 70% of us of the first scoop generation is missing, and a lot of us are coming back. So we're also got a lot of folks in our communities that aren't necessary, that are like figuring out all the how do you get this done in community. So this card is asking you, this pair of cards is suggesting that you need to change and figure out ways that, you know, to deal with scarcity issues, both in giving and receiving and requesting, and functioning through. Like, to learn these within your community, to learn these new rules and ways of going about it, because the ones that you grew up with don't apply anymore. And like, you know, they don't apply to you, and you want to like be like, fine, I'm going to make it apply in my community, except your community functions under different cultural norms, and so it wants you to figure that out. And it's sort of tricky to figure out because a large portion of our community is also not functioning under full and complete or any understanding of those cultural norms. So that's also part of the cultural norm, but we don't talk about it a lot in really good ways, right? And we need to. We need to talk about, okay, so the cultural norm is that we learn our cultural norms now as adults because we're constantly being displaced as children. And that's like all kinds of things, and it's really hard to hear, and it's really uncomfortable to hear, and it's really awkward to figure out because people don't talk about a lot of it in really healthy ways. Because who has the language for that? Who has the language for are rebuilding our cultural norms with each generation of adults who, because they didn't get them as kids, who has the language for that? We have to, you know, it's, I don't think it's something that, you know, largely people have to deal with in, it's something, you know, the more populated ethnic and racial backgrounds definitely don't deal with. It's something that indigenous populations deal with, and it's fairly new. So it's a hard message to receive, but that's the same for everybody. But it must be coming into you from somewhere, because it's being pointed out to you. So you need to look out for that and inquire about that and figure it out. Okay. With community. Because community is all over this reading. Okay. Now we get to help from your guide on your path. And we have the gecko and 15, the devil. All right. So what does the gecko have to say? I think the gecko's in the middle somewhere. I have bookmarks. They're magnetic bookmarks, so I was able to do a few pages together. Okay. Sacrifice of the ego, return to our most lovable state. Sacrifice of the ego, return to our most lovable state. They're a symbol of fearlessness and bold passion, sensuality. Help awaken the fire within. Prioritize pleasure, self-care, and connection. Choose to show off your full colors and sign your own unique songs of love. They are also messengers for thriving and staying positive in times of adversity. They teach us about losing our sense of danger or reality to our sensual sides. All right. So that's that goes really well with the devil, and particularly this devil. This is a great devil for this. I'm going to put the bookmark, if it will unmagnetize, back in case I need this again. Okay. So this reading has talked about, you know, thriving throughout it. The healing and the community and giving up an addiction and healing from that, they're all on that, right? That's all about, those were all about thriving. They were all about thriving. So, and staying positive in times of adversity. And they were about that too. But, you know, it's also about how you do that. Part of how you do that is, you know, sensuality. And it requires a vulnerability that healing requires. And it requires a vulnerability that overcoming addictions requires. And it requires a vulnerability that, like, relearning, you know, norms, community norms, requires. These things all require a vulnerability, as does sensuality. And this devil of all devils asks you to, like, just unchain yourself already and fly up in this, like, blissfulness, like, you know, this is a very sensual and sexual devil card. It just is. And it requires you to throw off your chains and what holds you down, which is the vulnerability that will allow you to find ultimate, like, pleasure. All these things require that. All these things promise pleasure. And you know what? Sex as a means of practicing this is good. Like, practice being more vulnerable. Practice throwing off your chains and going after what your heart truly, truly desires, and experiencing, like, the desires you're afraid to experience. And that is going to give you practice and confidence in throwing things off and being vulnerable in order to get to a better, more amazing outcome. It's great practice for it. So, when you're struggling with the other things, like, what chain do I want to throw off and, like, actually experience and try out and experience and test out and see if it's for me, and really be vulnerable in that experience, and figure out how I'm going to do that. And then, you know what, one of these other next steps is going to feel easier, and is just healing too. Sex when it's actually sex and not some, yeah. If it's consensual sex. If it isn't, it is not sex. So we're talking about consensual sex, because anything else isn't actually sex. When you do that, like, it boosts your immune system, and it boosts your endorphins, and it helps your body heal and your mind heal. And so this can be really difficult for a lot of people. And, for a lot of people, that level, throwing off vulnerability is a really, really scary thing, because life has made it a really, really scary thing. And, but part of your message here just before it was the world saying, like, you are leveling up. You are leveling up. And so, like, it's okay to throw off another chain. You are going to be safe in doing it, because you are leveling up. All right? So, to wrap up this reading, all right, we discovered that the inner child was speaking through childlike innocence and your inner voice and your of will that drives you. That in this moment, it is time. It is time to gift your future self freedom from an addiction. And that a message that was difficult, ongoingly difficult to receive, is that you need to deal with scarcity issues in different ways that are culturally appropriate to the communities you're in now, because you were taught skills for a community that you're not a part of, and as an adult couldn't ever be a part of. So now, like many of us, you have to refigure out what is the way to go about that. Then you have how to be open to your guide, and we talk about more healing, and it was very, very specific to community, going to community for healing, and a healing journey where you're leveling up to the next level of healing. And what's going to make you feel good and a gift to you and help you with all of those things. And part of that leveling up is throw off a chain. Throw off a chain on your sexuality, and be vulnerable and find the pleasure in it. And that is your reminder to how to do each of these other difficult things that, you are dealing with and learning and healing and unpacking. All right? And that is the reading. And so folks are able to email Aunty K Insights at gmail.com, or go to Aunty K's Insights on Facebook, or Aunty K's Tarot on Instagram, and message me with details on your reading and setting up the ability to discuss some of that with you, so that I can take your reading and unpack it further for you and get you through the parts you didn't fully understand or needed more information on. And then folks can learn how to do that for themselves. All right? There will be other types of shows offered here on this channel, and they will be related to tarot and learning more about tarot, and readings will still be, done through other means. I won't be doing readings on this channel. That's not what I foresee. All right? And there is a place where I offer free readings, and there's a group of people who do those, and so that's not like going to be some big mass thing. Just in that one small space. And so I hope everybody enjoyed this, and I hope to hear from you with readings you would like unpacked also. Enjoy your night, folks.